2004 marks the 100th anniversary of the Santa Claus Parade. It also happens to be the 20th anniversary of global television broadcasting the parade to millions of wide-eyed children and their sometimes equally wide-eyed parents all across the country. 20 years of capturing all the sights, all the sounds, and all the magic that's made the Santa Claus Parade a Christmas tradition for millions, young and old. Join us now as we look back on 2 decades of the Santa Claus Parade on Global. By 1985, the Santa Claus Parade had been an annual event in Toronto for 80 years. During that time, the crowds that lined the streets to watch this annual Christmas tradition grew from a few hundred to nearly 1 million. Those who couldn't see it in person looked forward to watching every spectacular minute on television. The parade had been broadcast annually since 1952 by a number of local TV stations.
Ready, one.
Until then, their approach was always the same, to broadcast the parade as a live event. That meant families who came to see the parade in person couldn't watch it on TV later. Remember, VCRs weren't as common then as they are now. But Global changed all that. They offered the Santa Claus Parade Organizing Committee a fresh, new approach to the broadcast. Global wanted to package the event live and air it later that same afternoon. This had 2 advantages. It enhanced the entertainment value of the broadcast by cutting out all the gaps and pauses that naturally crop up in a parade that stretches over 5 kilometers. It also meant the people who were at the parade site could go home and enjoy the show on TV later the same day. Other broadcasters said this was impossible, couldn't be done. Programs of this length took days, even weeks to package. It simply couldn't be accomplished in a matter of hours, they said. But Global proved them wrong. Bill Elliott has been the broadcast director for Global Santa Claus Parade coverage since day one. It's been his job to do the impossible.
The first parade we did was 1985, and my boss at that time was a fellow by the name of Michael Spivak, and he said to me one day, he was so excited about this Santa Claus parade that we were going to do, and it was going to be put together on, I thought it was just going to be like another parade. We've all done parades and things like that, but we weren't going to go to air live, we were going to edit it. And I went, fine, no big deal. And he says, yeah, but we have to go to air an hour and a half later. To put it in the terms of the president of the day, shock and awe really overcame me at that time because I just didn't think it could be done. We have a team of editors and production assistants that start rolling the package together based on the script that we have and we're operating with on that day. That becomes an immediate job for segment 1. Somebody has to assemble that. In the old days, when I think 20 years ago when we used 2-inch equipment to edit with, I mean, it was really, really tough. And nowadays, it's different because you're using more modern equipment. You can make your decisions quicker. They can be better decisions. If you don't like it, you can go back and fine-tune it. In those days, you pretty much had to go with what you had at that moment because time was of the essence. Directing a parade of this magnitude is very different from any other television show that I've been involved in. Henry Basilla does a marvelous job of directing the parade on site, and he gives us wonderful things to work with. We're able to take those segments and we have to put them together in a package that reaches air. You have to make it the right time, the first time. And that's what's different about this parade. And it's always a challenge, but it's always so much fun to work on.
The organizers of the parade liked this modern, dynamic approach to broadcasting. So in 1985, Global Television was awarded the broadcast rights to one of the longest-running parades in North America. Now, they actually had to pull it off. Fortunately, Global had plenty of experience producing live events for television. Their biggest production at that time was a live weekly lottery draw that originated from a different location every week. They also produced live baseball and hockey games on a regular basis. But they'd simply never mounted a broadcast as large or complex as the Santa Claus Parade before. Then again, few networks had. Henry Pasilla directed that first historic broadcast for Global and has directed every one since. He remembers what it was like to put that first show together.
It was a little bit like organized chaos at the time. I was the only one that had been involved in a parade and knew what to expect, so I was at an advantage there. We had two booths at that time, one set up for the English production and one set up for the French production. So we had to do a couple of things beforehand in our pre-taping that involved organization and those kinds of things. So it was, it went very, very well. Everybody really pitched in hard, and it was very well organized from the production point of view. So there weren't any real surprises in it, I don't think.
We're on the bear platform.
Pretty serious, I think, when I'm working. I'd like to keep it light when I can. But when I get tense, and if things aren't going right, I have a tendency to stand up. And people who have known me through my career realize that as soon as I stand up, something's wrong, and they're not sure what it is. They don't know whether they've done something wrong or whether it's me just stretching. But I think there are a lot of things that have happened over the years. None of them that were bad memories, all of them very, very good and happy memories.
Getting that first Santa Claus parade on the air successfully was a tremendous challenge. But the 1985 broadcast went to air without a hitch, much to the delight and relief of everyone involved. That wouldn't always be the case over the years. It seems broadcasting is ruled by an impish fellow named Murphy, and his law applies. Henry Pasilla remembers a moment that's funnier now than at the time.
Part of the broadcast is pre-taping portions of the program itself. Obviously, we can't do a lot of the interviews that were done live because of the parade going by. And the things that we used to pre-tape were the openings. And at one point, we had an animation of Santa Claus flying across the world delivering gifts, and off the back of his sleigh fell a parcel, a present, all nicely ribboned. This fell down into Toronto, and it turned out to be a large box that three of our talent were hiding in.
We're here, and just in time.
Thanks for the special delivery, Santa.
We tried this a dozen times. Every time we came to the portion where they were supposed to start their ad-libs, somebody would break up laughing. I was standing up a lot. It got to be crazy at that point, but we finally got it done, but I think that's probably the highlight of memories for taping anything during the Santa Claus parade.
Getting the show to air every year is not an easy job at the best of times.
When you work with time code in television, you're laying down a roadmap to follow as the parade gets to air. You're recording on a multitude of sources. And sometimes they're tape sources, sometimes they're a non-linear source. But when you put that parade to air, you're rolling an A machine with a segment that you want to go to air. You're pulling out some sort of flub or pause in the parade that you don't want to go to air, and you're pulling up the next segment. And you're constantly doing this. It's kind of like a juggling game all the way through. All of that time, you have to keep in mind that the parade has to come to time. And so you're working with mathematics all the time. And you're adding up those minutes and seconds and frames, and they've got to work out right, because we have commercials to deal with, we have all of that to deal with, and we have to be out by 6 o'clock because the news is coming on.
There's really only one star at the Santa Claus parade, but during the years, a number of personalities have hosted the broadcast of Santa's annual street party. They help describe the color and magic of the floats.
Well, this is a magical float with some of the world's most popular stories coming to life. And Cinderella, with her horse-drawn coach, portrayed by Michelle Labette, daughter of Peter Labette, parade director.
Well, I know everyone's going to love this float. They have to. It's filled with hearts, which only makes sense because it's called the Queen of Hearts, and it comes to us from a place with a big heart, the province of Ontario.
Just have a look at that golden sheen, those bright eyes, those shiny rivets and bolts holding this doggy together. Truly is a dog of the 90s.
And actually, the Royal Ontario Museum in Toronto is home to one of the best Maiasaur skeletons, and we're right in front of the ROM right now. That's where our booth is.
Our second float is really putting its best foot forward. It's the Shoemaker and the Elves, based on the enchanting story of a poor cobbler who wakes up to find his shop filled with finished shoes, thanks to a group of kindly elves who've worked through the night.
They brought us a never-ending array of wild and wacky characters.
And here's the Queen of Hearts in her luxurious red velvet walking skirt, escorted by her 12 maids, beautifully outfitted in yellow satin and gold headdresses. Then, of course, there's the King.
Sandy, I'll bet you can find some kids down there who can help us out with some of their nursery rhymes.
Well, John, I do have three with me. I have Jonathan Daw. You just heard from his dad. And this is Tim Beresford. And down here is Rachel Corbett. Now, Jonathan, as you look at these Mother Goose characters, can you think of some of the rhymes?
Okay, Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown, and Jill came tumbling after.
Oh, boy. And what about that Mary, Mary, quite contrary we see there, Rachel? How does your garden grow?
The silver bells and copper shells and pretty maids all in a row.
Yes.
And they introduced us to the many marching bands who've performed in the parade over the years.
They were organized in 1966 under the sponsorship of the Ukrainian Youth Association, and we're thrilled to have them back for their 14th year in the Toronto Santa Claus Parade.
They certainly are.
This is it, the grand arrival of the Santa Claus Parade.
Global's first hosts were John Daw and Faye Dance. At the time, Faye was also the popular co-host of Global's weekly Wintario lottery draw. John was a well-known, respected broadcast journalist and co-anchor of Global's midday news.
I was the business editor, and I was also a news anchor. And they're asking me to do what is called soft programming. And I was a bit taken aback. But when I thought about it, I thought to myself, you know, as a kid, I just absolutely adored the parade and what it stood for. The fact that it was saved by this group of business people from after the Eaton's department store group canceled the parade, and they came in and saved it. And I thought that the community needs the parade, and they need the kind of approach to the production that I knew Global was capable of doing, because other television broadcasts of the parade I didn't feel had the kind of respect for what the parade was all about. So I was just so honored, you know, and it was just a throwback to, you know, my days as a kid standing on the side of the street watching it, to actually being in a catbird position commenting on the parade and hosting this broadcast for all of Canada to see. It was just a terrific honor. We constantly were talking about the parade, the floats, the people that were involved, the general manager, Alfie Anarelli, and his crew, and the hard work they put into creating all those costumes and carving those floats and changing as many as they did every year. It was remarkable. Costa La Radio sent over 2 hosts and their own crew to take that parade back to the Soviet Union, where tens of millions of people throughout the Soviet Union saw something. That was the first time they had ever seen anything like that. And not only that, but they ran commercials for the first time on Soviet television, and the revenue from those commercials went to children's charities in the Soviet Union. I mean, it was just so wonderful. And the parade, the Toronto Santa Claus Parade, was a forerunner in that whole concept of openness. Global television, I think, did something that previous broadcasters didn't do, and that was they promoted the parade quite a bit. Because I can remember in the first couple of years, there were maybe 600,000-700,000 according to police estimates. But I can remember the last few years, or certainly the last several years perhaps, that it was close to 1 million people lining the streets of the route. And I think a lot of that had to do with Global's promotion of it, and the fact that it was a delayed broadcast, which meant that people could watch the parade and then rush home and see it on television. And I think that was brilliant to take that approach.
The first show I hosted was with John Daw in the booth. Again, a real professional. And John took the parade very seriously. He loved the parade. He loved the kids and the floats, and he also created a mood that it was an exciting place to be. Everything led up to parade day, and people didn't realize the number of meetings we would go through, and the preparation, and the visits to Santa's warehouse, and the press conferences. I only have just wonderful, fond memories of the parade. I grew up in a small town called Palmerston, population 1,700, so you can imagine the size of our Santa Claus parade. And every year, that was the highlight of the town, was the parade. And my father had a float in it because he had a store, so we would have a float, and then I would be on the float. And I thought that was a big deal. I didn't think it could get any bigger than that. It really was an honor to be asked to host the Santa Claus parade, first of all, and the fact that I was going to get paid, I mean, that was big as well. And the first person I called, of course, would be my dad. And my parents were always very, very proud of everything I've ever done. My son was born on Christmas Day. I was 8 months pregnant, and you're told you cannot leave the booth and you can't go to the bathroom, so that was a little uncomfortable, but it was a big family event.
Of course, every Santa Claus parade is special, and this year has extra significance because this is the 80th birthday of the Santa Claus parade, so we have a lot to celebrate today.
I remember very, very clearly that I felt so calm. And at first, I think it's because I had the mentality that, well, there are only going to be kids watching anyway, and they're so easy to please and they're so eager. And then I realized later, these kids can be any age. They can be up to the age of 95. But it just didn't bother me. And the one thing you have to remember with the parade, when you're on camera, you get a lot of the credit. The people who are seen the most get the credit. But there is a huge team that puts a parade together, whether it's the producer, the directors, and the Lynn, and the Bill, and the Gords, and the Liz, and the writers, and Kate, and I mean, it's the people who put the paint on the floats. It's the people playing in the band. It's the kids on the float. It's the people on the side of the road. This is one huge team. And because we had such an efficient team at Global, everything was accounted for. Nothing was overlooked. So there was a comfort zone knowing that I was surrounded by such professional people. Many times on the Saturday night before the parade, because you would get restless. You'd spend all day on the script at home, and I was very, very prepared. So then I thought, well, I got to go down and get the feel of it. I want to see where the cameras are set up. I want to see what the booth looks like. I want to drive part of the parade route. And so Saturday night, I would go down and I would just walk around, and it was almost like a mini rehearsal for me. And then the morning of the parade, I would always have the cab driver take Bloor Street, which was the part of the parade route. And every time we would pass Christie Pitts, I knew that all the floats were just down, because in the dark of the night, they would wind their way from the magic center of the warehouse and make their way to Christie Pitts. I'll never forget, the parade went on, and the floats and the bands and everything, and then it was time for Santa to appear. And when the Santa float comes around the corner and you first view it, there is this, I don't know, this incredible high that you feel. And Santa went by, and at the time I was hosting the parade with John Daw, and he said, "Hi, John. Hi, Faye." And I went, "Oh my gosh, Santa knows my name." And I'm thinking, of course he knows my name, but you know, there's still that childhood thing about you that it was infectious just to be down on the parade route and to see Santa go by.
Beautiful boys and girls, how are you? Hello, John. Hello, Faye.
Merry Christmas, Santa Claus.
Oh,
Merry Christmas.
Hi, Santa.
Love you. Be good.
In 1994, Sandy Hoyt joined Faye to co-host Global's broadcast of the Santa Claus Parade.
We're ready. We have all our ad-libs written and ready to go. All of these spontaneous remarks we've had written down for months, just so we'll be spontaneous.
And Susan Hay took to the streets to experience all the action with the kids. At the time, Sandy was also a popular radio personality in Toronto, but hosting the Santa Claus Parade was the highlight of his year.
I guess to me, it means getting back to where I was many years ago with my kids, you know, when they were little. I think there's always that time when the child in us wants to get out, and to me, it's the Santa Claus Parade.
I can be a kid again.
His sense of humor is what made us all love Sandy. I mean, he was, for example, we would have a quiet time, the mic would be off and a band would be about to approach and he'd turn to me and he'd go, "Wet's wissin'." And so we were supposed to listen to the bands anyway, but just the way he would say it and the facial expression. So there were times during the broadcast that I would actually have to turn my head from Sandy because he would say something, it could be a facial expression, it could be something he wrote on my script, and I thought, I cannot laugh, I cannot lose it here just because he's being silly. So we would just kind of wait until the commercial, and then I'd yell at him and say, "Leave me alone," you know, but I considered him a wonderful friend, and probably our viewers know by now that Sandy passed away, and to this day I associate the Santa Claus Parade with Sandy. And I don't remember the little ditty at the end of the parade. It was something about may your baubles always jangle and your streamers tangle. I don't know, but he wrote this and we ended at the parade with that, and that is definitely Sandy's signature.
As for me, I'd like to get serious for just one moment. And I always leave you with this greeting. And it is this: may your ribbons never tangle. May your baubles never break. May your bells always jingle. May your gifts all fit, and may your holidays and every day bulge with happiness. And from all of us here in the Holly Jolly Gallery, Merry Christmas!
In 1999, Dawn and I were given the honor of hosting the annual Santa Claus Parade, something we now look forward to doing every year. And while the band makes its way down the street, entertaining the crowds, we're going to take a short break.
But when we come back, more exciting bands and floats as the Santa Claus Parade continues from Toronto.
Well, to be brutally honest with you, the first parade I did was the first parade I saw because I worked every Sunday and really didn't get a chance to watch it. We, even the years when I joined Global, worked every Sunday afternoon. So our peak time was the time when the Santa Claus Parade was on. So I didn't have the time, and growing up in the Maritimes, we didn't see it down there. So until I actually saw one live, I had no idea what the Santa Claus Parade was all about. I had a rough idea. I knew Santa Claus, so when the boss called, I was more than happy to pitch in and do what I could. But sad to say, the first one that I did was the first one that I saw. I was looking forward to the challenge, having no idea at the time what was involved. But I think what kind of brought it all home to me was telling my wife and family, my daughter, who was about 13 years old at the time, and she thought it was about the coolest thing that I had done since, well, she thought it was the first coolest thing I'd ever done. So that kind of made it a little more exciting for me.
So far, we've had musical bands, we've had the all-girl marching band. I know that's your favorite. What do you think's coming up next?
I could tell you, but it's better off if you come back and see for yourself. We'll be
First time in the booth and seeing the parade start, it shocked me how fast it moved. And you wouldn't think with those floats moving down the parade route so slowly that would be the case, but there's so many things you have to get done during that brief window of opportunity that by the end of the day or end of each segment, you're just, what happened? What did I see? And it took a while to adjust to the speed of the production as opposed to the speed of the parade. And the other thing I recall was that as the parades went, the floats went by, I didn't know what I was looking at. I didn't know them well enough, as well as I should have, to be able to comment on them. So ever since then, I've made it a point to go and see each float as it's under construction, the finished product, well in advance, get them in order and make my notes, and so that I know when the parade is unfolding before me, as each individual float moves by, I have an idea of what's on it, what I should be saying about it, beyond the notes that were given, and there are a lot of those. Everyone knows the one or two lines from every Christmas Carol, but it's frustrating when you're doing a parade and you're trying to think on the spot of what Christmas Carol you're hearing or what the band is playing. I think the very first parade I got lucky because I'd seen a show earlier on one of the channels flipping through, and they were playing Scotland the Brave. That's the only Piper song I know, and the first band that walked by was playing Scotland the Brave. So that was a big coup for me, actually being able to recognize a non-Christmas tune as it was being played in front of me. Might have sounded a little bit like an expert there, but I assure you,
I have no idea what most of the bands are playing. I got lucky that one time, and I've been kind of hoping that every time a pipe band walks by, that they'll be playing Scotland the Brave. For me, it's been a bit of an eye-opener into seeing the work that's done behind the scenes. And that's always the feeling that I've had, is that I get far too much exposure / credit for the amount of work that I do on the parade. I just feel that there are so many other people who do so much more that the least I can do is the very best job I can.
I grew up in northeastern Ontario, so it wasn't easy for my parents to take us as a family to Toronto because we lived 4 hours away. But I watched it with my family year after year, and I, as a child, always wished that I could be on a float. I would interview the parents and the children and just talk a little bit about the floats, taking all the throws from the hosts. And it was so memorable because just to grow up in Northern Ontario and be in the broadcasting world here in Toronto, but then be a part of this huge production was amazing to me. So I always had a good time with it.
Jingle bell, jingle all the way. I forgot the words. I got like one line.
There's so many funny stories. Unnerving, I'd have to say, when I was doing color commentary, we lost one of the floats, and in my IFB they kept saying, "The dog's down, the dog's down." At first I didn't understand it, and I thought, okay, we had this mechanical dog float. A lot of things that I was going to talk about and interview the kids about surrounded the dog. So we had to change things on a fly, but that was okay coming from the world of news. I was good with the ad-libbing. You know, I look forward to it every year, I truly do. And not just because I'm the host of the show or the co-host of the show, it's because it's a great day all around. In terms of my career, it's one of the best things that I have done. It's exciting, it's different, and each parade is always different. I think that it's probably one of the largest shows, productions that we do here at Global Television, and we're all a part of it. There's a crew of about 100, perhaps there's even more than that. A lot of work goes into it. It's stressful at times, but we all come together as a family year after year. People volunteer their time to come down and help out. And from the police officer that you see every year to the same person or the same family at the same corner each year, coming out to say hello to Dawn and I. And the smiles, not only on the little ones' faces, but on Grandma's face and Mom and Dad, and just the smiles on our face. It's just a happy day in what we now say is such a stressful world. We all hit the ground running every day, and there's so much going on. This is just a happy experience for everybody. So I'm thrilled and honored and really proud to be a part of it.
In the 90s, Global's broadcast of the Santa Claus Parade started reaching beyond the borders of Ontario.
Global affiliates in British Columbia, the Prairies, Manitoba, and the Maritimes began broadcasting the parade to a national audience.
We even launched the production of a French version for our Quebec viewers beginning in 1988. Later, other independent stations joined the Operation Santa network to bring the parade to an even wider audience across Canada. But we weren't about to stop there.
In 1989, the Santa Claus Parade began charming international audiences as well. That year, Global Television broadcast the parade throughout Russia and the Commonwealth of Independent States for the first time. It then became a truly global event when television stations in other countries joined the Operation Santa network. That's when the parade's reputation began to spread around the world, to Ireland, to Norway, to Australia, and to New Zealand.
But viewers here at home get something the international audience never gets to see. From the very beginning, Global also produced a half-hour behind-the-scenes look at the making of the Santa Claus Parade.
Each year, we take audiences where they've never been before. We show them how the floats are made. We introduce them to some of the skilled artists and craftspeople under the direction of Parade General Manager and Creative Director Alfred Iannarelli.
We take them behind the scenes on the big day to see how all these floats make it to the parade site.
We also take viewers to the parade staging area where hundreds of ordinary-looking people are transformed into the cute and kooky characters who march in the parade every year. We also show audiences how Global puts the parade broadcast together with behind-the-scenes footage of the broadcast itself. This gives them a look at all the technology and equipment required to bring the parade into their living rooms every year.
Much has changed in the world of television since Global started airing the annual Santa Claus Parade 20 years ago. New technologies have helped us improve the quality of the broadcast.
For example, advances in video camera technology allow today's viewer to feel like they're right in the parade. We use these new technologies to help enrich the viewing experience,
so that children watching the parade at home will have the same reaction as those who watch it live.
This is one of the most difficult shows I've ever done, and it continues to be because they keep packing in more and more floats and more bands, and we want to make the best coverage we possibly can. And there's one guy in particular that really takes a certain amount of pride and ownership in it, and that's a fellow by the name of Greg Zackow. We've been told year after year by the parade people that, oh, that parade was great, it was seamless. One of the things that helps make that seamless, I'll share a little secret with you. Greg sits in an audio room, and as floats go by, he's adding certain sound effects that are matched to that particular float. He's adding music as well. And so when we do our pull-ups, those particular sound effects and music, which are matching and really designed for that float, come along with us for the ride. And when we go to the band, then the band is live music again from the band that was picked up by Henry and his crew down on site. And so it becomes a very flowing, seamless show all the way through. If you ever watch the tail end of the parade, you're going to see a long list of credits. But it's really headed up by the two L's, Lynn and Liz. I tell you, the two of them put this parade together, and they do a marvelous job of it. And we wouldn't have the kind of stuff to work with unless these two put the effort in. There's a lot of unsung heroes. When you think of the technical aspects of the parade on a day-to-day basis and what that takes to get it all together, get the equipment together, get whatever equipment you have to rent, there's an unsung hero there in Johnny McEwen, and he really does put that together. And before him, it was Eugene McElhenney. And they've learned through the global system and what it takes to put something like this together, and they make it work year after year, and we're so lucky to have them.
Another new technology has helped us bring the Santa Claus Parade to even more people around the world. In 1999, Global began streaming the parade on the internet. Now, people all over the world can log on to www.canada.com and watch the world's longest-running children's parade right up until New Year's Day. And people right here at home can relive the magic of their special parade, too.
Despite all these advances in technology, there's one factor that's still out of everyone's control: the weather. Mother Nature can choose to either smile or frown on parade day. Fortunately, most years the Santa Claus Parade has been blessed with good weather, but there have been exceptions. A forecast of bad weather means a lot of scrambling at the last minute by everyone involved.
We had a major snowstorm. I think we had 13 centimeters of snow in a couple of hours. Our booth, Don and I, the snow that surrounded the desk, and our papers were wet, but it looked so pretty. Everybody commented that it was like the best parade, winter wonderland, because normally in November in downtown Toronto, there's not a lot of snow on the ground, or we might have had a couple of centimeters the week before and the week after, but the weekend of the parade's always great, not this particular day.
We got the big, heavy, wet flakes stuck to every float. That was a little dicey. Plus, you always have that, I guess, sympathy for the crew, because they're out there running cables and moving cameras around and trying to work under those conditions. So we have it relatively comfortable in the booth with the electric blankets and the heaters and everything that we have. But that was probably as close as we got to a bad weather day. And yet, because of the snowfall and just the way it lit up the whole parade route, it was probably the most attractive parade we've done.
At the end of the day, the parade looked fabulous because of the atmosphere, the snow on the floats, the snow on the characters, the snow on the bands, and everything went well from our point of view. We lost a couple of cameras due to the weather, but that didn't matter. We were able to cover with other things. So it worked out very, very well, but I think that was the highlight in terms of weather from my perspective, and probably from the production perspective on any of the shows that we've done.
I want it to be cold. I really want it to be cold and brisk, because I want to move those bands along, I want to move those floats along, and really it's for the betterment of everybody, because when the pace of the parade is moving along briskly, it's condensed. The parade is condensed into a tighter package. That means that I can get more of those same floats in the same amount of time, with more varying shots, more of those bands in, with all the horns and the drums and the band majors. All of that can be done. But if it's a warm, sunny day, people have a tendency to lollygag and slow down. And we really don't want that. We want to have energy on it. I think it looks better. Lots of energy, move them along.
I remember more good days, bright, sunshiny days, mild days, and I worry more about the babies on the parade route, the little kids, because they arrive early. It's a long day for them if it's bitterly cold, but I think we were pretty lucky with weather.
But no matter what the weather, the show must always go on. After all, the weather never seems to bother the millions of young fans who can't wait for this big day to come every year, because it's all worth it when this moment arrives.
All boys and girls, Merry Christmas!
When Santa appears at the end of every parade, the moment is always magical, no matter what the weather.
That's been a look at Global Television's past Santa Claus Parade broadcasts. For more about jolly old St. Nick and his annual street party, stay tuned for 100 years of the Santa Claus Parade, coming right up.